Hi there, Year 9s. This is exercise 1G. We're going to be looking at question 9. 1G is about distance formula and midpoint formula. Now, to do this question, especially when you have a segment and you need to split it in ratios rather than finding the midpoint, you're finding the point where it's in a certain ratio, right? There is a formula that you can find. I think it's called the segment ratio formula. And I believe it goes as midpoint of an A to B ratio is equal to, it would be A times x2 plus B times x1 divided by A plus B for the x coordinate. And then it will be A times y2 plus B times y1 over A plus B. Okay, now, this formula, there is a bit of a caveat. You have to make sure you know which one's x2 and x1. x1 is always smaller than x2, and and y1 is always smaller than y2. So just make sure that when you pick your values that you know which one is which. Otherwise, the ratio won't work. Okay, so for example, if I were to do C as an example, so C, you want a 2-to-1 ratio, so A is 2 and B is 1, then the new midpoint of a 2-to-1 ratio will equal to, now this is your, if you draw out the axes, you can see that -2, 0 is over here, and the other one is 3, 4, and the other one's 0. Okay, so the y value, clearly y1 has to be 0. y1 has to be 0, and therefore -2 is your x1. Yeah? And then you've got your next point, from left to right, 3 to 4. 3 to 4, you've got the small value, this is x2, and then this is y2. Okay, so y1, x2, y2. Okay, based on the 2 points, we can tell which one goes first. Okay, so from here, if I were to answer the question, it will be A, which is 2 times x2, and x2 in this case is 3, plus B, which is 1 times x1, which is -2. Wait, yeah. And then that's all over A plus B, which is 2 plus 1. Okay, and then I do the same thing. 2 times y2, y2 is 4, and then plus, what was it again? B was 1 times y1, which is 0. Divided by 2 plus 1. So that would be the formula, and you would get 6 plus a -2, which is 4 on 3, and the other one is 8 plus 0, so 8 on 3. Okay, so you can get it just using the formula, but I don't like students just knowing how to use a formula because they didn't teach this in the textbook. So how were you meant to do it logically? The logic to it was you needed to find the horizontal distance, and you needed to look at the vertical distance, right? And you need to split it into the ratio. So we wanted a 2-to-1 ratio. That means in the line, you got to split it up into 3 equal parts. True? Because if it's a 2-to-1 ratio, you can see that this is 1 part, this is 2 parts, so that's 2 to 1. That means that you have to have a total of 3 parts in the question, right? Now the distance that you can see is that from -2 to 3, that's a total distance of 5 horizontally. So horizontally, for x, the distance is 5. They all add up to 5. If you want to split it up into 3, you got to do 5 divided by 3. So that means this is 5/3, this is 5/3, and this is 5/3, right? Now, the number that you're starting off with, you can see that you're starting off at -2, and you work towards 3. So that means starting point is -2, and if you want 2-to-1 ratio, that means you need to jump 2 blocks. So to get the x coordinate, it should be -2 plus double of 5/3, because you need 2 of them. 1, 2, yeah? Double of 5/3 is 10/3. That will give you the 2 components, because you got to split this line up into 3s. You need 2 components start adding on from -2. So that's why -2 plus the 10/3. What does that give me? Let's work it out. That's -6 plus 10. That's 4/3 right there. And then you got to do the same for the vertical component. So the vertical line starts off at 0, because clearly the y value is 0 here, and it goes all the way up to a y value of 4, right? So 0 to 4, this line has a distance of 4. And I need to split it into 3 equal parts, because I need a 2 to 1 ratio, right? So that means each part is 4/3, 4/3, 4/3. So if you wanted to go to the 2 to 1 ratio, or 2/3 of the way, you need to add from 0, you need to add 4/3 plus another 4/3. So it'll be 0 plus double of 4/3 is 8/3, and that's a 4 over 3 to 8 over 3 is exactly the same answer. Because whatever you're doing here, this formula here that you're doing, that's pretty much how they got the formula to begin with. Okay, so that's how you do this question. Have a go with either doing what I just taught in, mathematically, reasoning-wise, or I guess at the end of the day, you can just memorize the segment ratio, which I don't recommend because you'll forget this. But if you know how to do this, you can take your time and then derive the formula. Okay? Let me know if you need further support on how to do that again. So I started from -2, added on how much 2/3 would be, and then I started on the y value, which starts at 0, and I added 2/3 to find that point. So that diagonal line, I made sure it was 2/3 of the way, and then 2/3 of the way vertically. That's how I make it 2 to 1 ratio. Okay, so it has to be, that's the idea, 2/3 of the way. Cool?